An introduction. Hello, and welcome to one of the first review type videos I've ever made. In today's video we will be looking at Subnautica Below Zero to see how well it holds up to the original Subnautica and to basically review the game. We'll cover the gameplay, story, biomes, flora and fauna, as well as all the scrap content that didn't make the cut. This video will have major spoilers, so I'd advise picking up the game, beating it, and then returning to this video. All the chapters of the video will be timestamped in the description if I remember, which I probably won't, and possibly be in the video progress bar again if I remember, I probably won't. With that all out of the way, let's begin this deep dive into Subnautica Below Zero. An introduction to Subnautica. The original Subnautica was released in an early access phase on the 16th of December 2014. After receiving massive amounts of updates and changes, it was first fully released to the public. Well, it was released to the public before, but like fully released, on January 23rd, 2018 for Windows and Mac OS. That's a rare one, Mac doesn't get games. With console ports to Xbox One, Series X and S, PS4 and 5, as well as the Nintendo Switch. This game takes a huge twist on the survival genre by not only placing you on an alien planet with jack shit on you, but the other issue is, this planet is completely filled with water and alien fishes that want to kill you dead. In the game, there's not too much story clogging up everything, although most of it is optional via entries in your PDA, which I'll get to later, and the protagonist you play as is silent, with the only other voices in the game being in audio files, a mysterious fish in the endgame, if you know, you know, radio messages, your vehicles, your PDA, which is a futuristic high-tech iPad, and a few other places. The plot is simple. You crash land in a life pod armed only with your PDA, and you have to figure out everything about this strange new world for yourself. Or you could be an absolute wanker and just find all the info on Wikipedia like some sort of cretin, or me. You're slowly drip-fed information about your ship's crash, and you soon learn that you are completely alone on this planet, with all other survivors dying soon after the crash. Subnautica was filled with tension, as well as having well-polished and addicting gameplay, which helped it solve the major problem of survival games. You feel like you're actually surviving from something. I'm sorry that I'm banging on about the first game when this is a video about the sequel, but first I need to contextualise this so you can see some of the major problems in Below Zero. Subnautica Below Zero was originally intended as a DLC expansion to Subnautica that quickly evolved into its own game. It was released in early access on the 13th of January 2019 with a full release across all platforms on May 14th 2021. It wasn't received as well as the first game because of multiple major flaws that we'll cover later on. Gameplay. Below Zero starts like the first game. After a short cutscene, you crash land on an alien planet completely filled with water. Oh no, did I not mention that around a third of the map is frozen over with ice sheets, and the game takes place on dry land. Anyways, you jump into the ocean and swim towards your life pod. You start the game by gathering resources and diving deeper into the mysterious underwater biomes nearby, using oxygen plants, which is a new thing, to scrape just enough oxygen to get to the stuff you want to scan or the resources you need, until you realise that there are far too many oxygen plants in every biome, and unless you get lost or are fucking stupid, you're not in much danger of drowning at all. This relates to one of the main major issues that the game has. It's not able to handle tension nearly as well as the first game. This game isn't as deep as the original, in a literal and figurative sense, with the deepest biome only getting to 900 meters, if you're lucky, compared to the 1500 meters of the original. Another issue is that the developers wanted the game to be different and intentionally moved away from the horror aspect to focus on a convoluted story. As well as the depth change, the map is tiny. It is 1/6 the size of the original Subnautica's map, which feels astonishingly small in gameplay. Going into Below Zero after the first game, you notice a major difference in brightness, with literally everything being bioluminescent, including most of the creatures having glowing portions of or around them. You don't even need to explore the whole biome, as most of the story takes place at only around 170 meters down. The music in the game is meh, compared to some of the absolute bangers from the first game, mostly because they changed the composer for some reason. However, the creature calls are fantastic, from the Cryptosuchus and Chelicera. For some reason, the Cryptosuchus makes loud roars that wouldn't be out of place on a Reaper. Since Cryptosuchus are in literally every biome, it kind of desensitizes you to the roars and the sounds of the deep, taking away the little tension that was left. They removed the Cyclops and Sea Moth from the first game and replaced it with the Sea Truck and the Snow Fox. Luckily, the prawn suit stayed. This could have worked out because the map is nowhere near big enough for a vehicle as large and clunky and chunky as the Cyclops, or as quick as the Sea Moth. The Sea Truck is a neat idea on paper, and with the ability to attack different modules for storage, fabrication, and the ability to hold your prawn suit, etc. But it's just way too clunky and isn't very manoeuvrable. The new Snow Fox is a hover bike that you can only use on dry land, so 1/3 of the map if you remember. You need to build a separate charging module on the land for it to even be able to work and be charged enough. The controls in it are the most clunky out of any vehicle in any game I've ever played, with you not being able to move by turning your camera, but rather with button presses that control the left and right sides of the vehicle. It does a shit job of being a hover bike, as it's so close to the floor and will take shit tons of damage by bumping into stuff on the floor. Let's go on a positive note now. A good addition to this game is the introduction of weather, with it being able to have thunderstorms, blizzards, etc., which just ends up really limiting your exploration on land. It also ends up making land more hostile than sea, which I think is one of the main points the devs are going for with this game, along with a new temperature gauge to keep you hot on your toes to make sure you're warm enough so you don't freeze to death. The issue is if you are in the water, underground, or in a cave, you suddenly get really warm. I'm sorry, but if you take a deep pool of water inside a fucking glacier, I don't think you'll be very warm. And the same goes for caves made of literal fucking ice. It makes little to no sense. There are also these plants all over the surface that either warm you up or grow spicy food that warms you up. Again, if you have a feature like this in a game, what's the point of negating it by adding things that negate the point of the feature? Being on land can feel slow and clunky, with you keeping on having to duck for cover in caves, use stupid vehicles, and stopping if the weather gets a bit bad. Like, if Britain was in this universe, you're screwed. Another new addition to the game is the Spy Penguin, a remote control penguin, which is the penguin monster of this game on ice sheets on the surface, that you can use to collect resources. A good concept on paper, but is executed extremely poorly, with a 4-slot inventory of the penguin, and again, clunky controls. One final thing, the new PDA is shit. Not only does it have a thick, hard to understand Indian accent for some reason, it also lacks the quips and jokes that the original game's PDA had, making it seem robotic and empty. Overall, the gameplay is not as good as the original. Has little to no tension, the vehicles are clunky and slow, the map is tiny, and the sound design is okay at best. Story. Okay, so the developers sacrificed gameplay for the story. This story better be so good that it blows the entire game out of the water. Massive spoilers ahead, so use the timestamps in the description to skip this segment if I remember. This game starts by introducing your character as Robin Ahu, who crash lands on the planet in order to try and find information about her sister Sam. You take off in the middle of a meteor storm, with your only escape plan being, I'll manage to find my way back, with only a few bits of food. So she intentionally crash lands on a planet that is known for having hostile and dangerous creatures with no tools or resources. Somehow she manages to crash land near where she wanted to be, which is good, because if she landed over the void, she would be absolutely fucked. Also, she talks so fucking much, which makes me almost miss the original so much because of its silent protagonist. There's no need for unnecessary dialogue, which just devalues the experience. After doing a cheeky bit of swimming and getting some tools and resources, you get a mysterious signal. You learn that an alien dude is stuck inside a storage medium that is losing power quickly, so you offer it your PDA. But it decides that your tablet isn't on the latest iOS version, so it downloads itself to your brain instead. You learn that an alien or precursor called Alan, get it, it's fun, is now trapped in your head, and you need to help him build a body. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the only reason the plotline makes you explore underwater at all, as most of the stuff related to Sam, the reason you're here in the first place, is on dry land. It's like the devs realised halfway through development, oh shit, this is a Subnautica game, and it just really comes off as lazy. Straight after implanting himself into your head, Alan gives you locations to almost every important precursor base in the entire game in order for you to help build him a body. Also, as you explore, Alan and Robin have conversations, which really ruins the atmosphere and throws you off your objective. Back onto Sam's story. When you land, you have an audio log that tells you to begin your search on Delta Island. You go to Delta Island, find a base, some small hints, and that's about it. On your way off the island, you encounter one of the thought to be dead survivors from the first game. Margaret, blah blah, whatever the name is. Apparently, she killed a Reaper Leviathan in the original with only a knife, and then rode its carcass across the void to Sector 0 without being sniffed out or hunted by void chelicerates or ghost leviathans. She was riding a fucking rotting body across an area filled with hungry leviathans, and also didn't die to the Carabacterium that there is a 99% chance she was infected with. So anyway, she warns you because she thinks you're with Alterra, which is the big evil space company in the game. Whoa. She then fucks off, and somehow your iPad manages to automatically track her last recorded coordinates. Her base is also conveniently on top of the 2 endgame biomes, so the game literally hands everything to you in coords and on your map within the first hour or so. This is supposed to be a series about exploration and discovery, and that aspect is yet another thing that's ruined by this game. Through more conversations with Alan, you manage to learn that he was the lead scientist trying to cure the Carabacterium from the first game. He's a biologist, and his primary objective being to cure the bacterium with the Sea Emperor enzyme. He mentions his species operate as a collective, with all their minds being intertwined and are able to download to the cloud. They don't understand human emotions, but are somehow supposedly extremely intelligent. So how does that work? So apparently this genius is directly responsible for the bacteria outbreak in the first place, because he disobeyed the collective when their minds are supposed to be one and the same. But in his own words, you're either with or against the collective, so that would allude to the entirety of his species being able to think freely instead of being a network. Despite him saying they were a network, it just makes no sense. So he makes a mistake that kills all of his species and almost all the life on a planet. He's forced to download himself to some stickle bricks and think about what he did for thousands upon thousands of years. You go around the whole game talking to this nutter, but when you finally construct his body, he gives you coordinates to the warp gate, which you and he use to travel back to his home world. The credits roll. But what about Sam? The whole reason you were here in the first place. Oh yeah, that's all optional for some reason. So you reload your save, head to Margaret's secret gamer base. You get ambushed by a snow stalker and ask her about your sister. She says that she might know, but you've got to disable the Altera satellite to stop it from tracking her, and in return she'll tell you. The issue is, you find PDAs that tell you Altera already knows Robin and Margaret are on the planet. So what will disabling the satellite do? Once you disable the radio tower, she'll call you to her greenhouse, where she gives you a PDA of her talking about Sam. Combining all the scraps and PDAs from all over the game, this is what you find out. In the investigation of the planet, Altera stumbles onto a dead frozen leviathan that still has traces of the Kra bacterium on it. Sam hears from someone that they're experimenting with bacteria, so she's automatically like, oh shit, they're gonna make bioweapons with it, with absolutely no evidence whatsoever to back it up. She then asks her co-workers for help, who all decline because they're not nutters. Turns out the bacteria was being used to help create cures and medical treatments, and all of her co-workers were nice and friendly people. So Sam manages to make a cure for the bacterium by herself, despite her job being working on robo penguins, and us finding out a superior intellectual race got outpaced by a penguin engineer at making a cure for bacterium. What the fuck? She then plans to use the cure on the bacterium so it could be used for testing. But instead of doing what a normal person would do and cure the bacterium, she hides it in a cave and reaches out to Margaret to sabotage everything else going on the planet. While also using explosives, Margaret gave her to collapse the cave the Leviathan is located in to make sure the bacterium is dead. Which wouldn't at all be needed if she, cured it. And I'm sure a load of rocks falling on a piece of bacteria, that'll stop it. Except, when doing so, she gets caught by a security guard while setting up, and she does the only sensible thing any person would do. Detonates it on the spot, killing her and the security guard. What? How does that make any sense? So to recap, Robin, an intelligent xenobiologist, crash lands on a known to be hostile alien planet after setting off in the middle of a meteor storm with no habitat builder or oxygen tank. The only thing she brings is water and a few granola bars, and if she lands a mile in any other direction, she'd be dead. Soon after landing, she tries to download an alien to her iPad, but it lasers into her cerebral cortex instead, after the power in his base conveniently runs out just after she got there, despite all other less important facilities on the planet being completely fine on power. So this complete stranger that just implanted himself into Robin's skull asks her to build him a body that he most likely doesn't need, as he's a hive mind using stuff you find in facilities at the bottom of the ocean for no apparent reason. He says he's a hive mind and you're either against or with the collective, but he acts as an individual against the collective after sticking a sea emperor in a box, which he didn't need to do, in order to speed up the hatching of eggs to get an enzyme he needed. This actually stopped the young from growing, so the Sea Emperor destroyed the entire facility. So he became emo, downloaded his brain to the cloud, leaving the rest of the life on the planet to die for 1,000 years, which is in no way related to the main story, where he managed to bump into a dude in a modded prawn suit that managed to swim across the void full of hungry leviathans on a reaper corpse that she killed with nothing but a knife, and she somehow managed to survive that and float directly to Sector 0. When she leaves, your BTEC iPad tracks her current location to her base, where she instructs you to disable a radio tower you don't need to break because she's somehow trying to stop a transgovernmental corporation that already knows where both of you are, but it somehow works, so you investigate your sister who builds robot penguins for a living, but still managed to single-handedly cure a deadly bacterium using chilies and iodine, which is something an entire race of intellectual aliens couldn't figure out for thousands of years. But instead of using the cure like a normal person, she hides it in a cave and tries to take down all other projects on the planet with the help of a crazy woman she barely knows. She then decides to fucking nuke the frozen Leviathan's cave instead of just curing the bacterium, despite there being no indication at all they were using the bacterium for bioweapons. But she gets caught and ends up blowing herself up and an innocent employee in the process, killing them both, all while never killing the bacterium like she was supposed to, and the eco-terrorist she teamed up with didn't even follow up to see if she succeeded, but fucks off to her gamer base underwater. But you were somehow unfazed by this and build a hostile alien that managed to endanger humanity as a whole, a new body so he's now out of your head. Then the two of them fuck off to his home planet with no cure for the bacterium or knowledge if the atmosphere is even breathable for humans. Yep, that was the story that the gameplay got sacrificed for. That was the reason why the game was so bad. This is why there's no horror and why there are bland biomes. This is the excuse for why everything in the game sucks. Biomes. We've already established a much smaller map size, but maybe they went quality over quantity, right? These areas here are land biomes, which we'll talk about later. So let's just talk about some of the biomes. These are the East and West Arctic, the same biome. They are largely empty with very few points of interest. The only stuff here are brinicles, frost anemones, and maybe a glow whale. Penguins, panicurids, and a few other uninteresting creatures. What is the point of this biome if it's filled with literally nothing? And why have two of them? This is just laziness, and this is the first thing. Come on, man. The sparse Arctic. This is the next biome, which is literally identical to the East and West Arctic, except there are a ton of icebergs, which lead to you being stuck for oxygen. Again, the game finds a solution in something that would have otherwise built tension by placing Titan holefish literally everywhere to replenish your oxygen. Yet another copy-pasted biome. Next, we have the World Edge, a bottomless void filled with void leviathans, which is a reskin of an already existing leviathan, the Chelicerae, which is just to stop players from getting out the map, and it's the exact same trick used in the first game. Laziness. All of these biomes have something in common. They're devoid of literally anything at all, which makes them end up looking unfinished or forgotten about. West Arctic may have jellyfish to differ from the others. In my opinion, it makes it look like they copy-pasted them to fill an otherwise uninteresting space. The only real difference from the sparse Arctic to the others is the addition of brine wings. But then again, who's going to want to visit a biome just for annoying little fish? Next, you have the Thermal Spires, which is a reskinned biome from the previous game, which contains Cryptosuchus and rock punchers. It's also extremely annoying to traverse given the sheer height of these thermal spires, which can sometimes reach dangerously high near surface level. Then there's the Kelp Forest, which is yet another reskinned biome from the previous game. This one is pretty interesting though. It contains sea monkeys, which can lead to some funny or annoying interactions, deep caves to explore, and lots of resources. Unlike the first game, it has no danger at all, not even a whiff of a stalker. This also adds to another major flaw of the game, not enough hostile creatures. Now look at the map. These are the only new underwater biomes you're going to get. Sure, there are some I missed, but they're just cave variants of already covered biomes. In the original there were a whopping 39 biomes, and in Below Zero there is a measly 24. Most of these are cave variants of existing biomes, so the number of the unique biomes is a measly 14. You start off in a biome called the Shallow Twisty Bridges, just like the Safe Shallows in the original. Nothing is out to get you here. Then there's one of the first biomes you'll explore, the Twisty Bridges. For me, this biome is one of the best in the game. It has just enough stuff for early and late game players, and gets you used to the main game mechanics really well. Since there needed to be yet another Twisty Bridge themed biome, there are the Deep Twisty Bridges for late or mid game players. It's a confusing network of caverns with various fauna trying to kill you, but valuable loot in the depths. This one would be better if it wasn't yet another Twisty Bridges themed area. Next up, here's my favourite biome in the game, the Lily Pad Isles. It has a unique concept, beautiful landscape, lots of resources, as well has lots of interesting creatures, including squid sharks, which is, funnily enough, my favourite creature from the game. Overall, an amazing biome. In contrast to this, the purple vents is a really bad biome, full of copy-pasted landscape, as well as being filled with Cryptosuchus, which are in almost every fucking biome. The only real threat is a Chelicerates, which isn't unique to this biome, with there being a whopping 4 around the map, realising you'd have a better chance of standing around in Tree Spires, which has half of the world map's Chelicerate population living in it. Moving on to the Tree Spires, apart from there being 2 oversized prawns located there, there's also these big jellyfish things that stay rooted to the spot, and you can go inside to grab materials. That's literally the only reason to go. Story, or you need some more spiral plant clippings. That was me, I had to go back many times. Now on to the underground portion of the game, where you need to go down one specific cave to enter an entirely new biome. First up is a deep lily pads cave, which, you guessed it, contains deep lily pads and literally nothing else apart from alien shit. You need to progress the story with. Next is the Crystal Caves, which is a relatively endgame place, being home to a whopping 2 shadow leviathans, again half of the map's population. This cave contains some cool loot that can be gotten at the expense of you and your vehicle. The final underwater biome is called the Fabricated Caverns, which connect to the Crystal Caves. The only reason to go here is story, unless you really like the other half of the map's Shadow Leviathan population, deciding you're their dinner. There you are. That's all the biomes. Here's the land biomes, let's go through some of them. On land you have your typical iceberg biome, which is just fucking ice. What do you want me to say about it? Maybe containing a few cheeky snow stalkers if the game feels like it. The only reason to go being, yet again, story. The final biome on land and in the game is the Arctic Spires, which is the same as the iceberg, but with 4 ice worm leviathans that want to kill you. Hang on, I'm noticing a theme there. There are only 3 types of leviathan, with 4 of each existing, and up to 12 total leviathans in the game, which is not much compared to the 36 total leviathans that the original game had. That's it. Those are the only biomes in this game. Most of the biomes feel pretty linear, in contrast to the deep open water ones from the first game, which added to the fear, not knowing what can come at you from any direction. Each new biome you found, there were new threats and things to experience and try out. Not the same concepts and creatures copied and pasted 1,000 times. For example, you can find squid sharks in the deep twisty bridges, deep lily pad caves, lily pad islands, and you can find Cryptosuchus in the purple vents, thermal spires, outside the crystal caves, lily pad islands, Kappa mining site, and probably some I missed. In conclusion, the map size and lack of biodiversity in biomes most likely help contribute to the bigger problem here, which is why this game is nowhere nearly as good as the original. Flora and Fauna. Although the sequel brings many new creatures to the game, we see most of them within the first few hours of playtime. The only ones you don't really see until near the end of the game are the Shadow Leviathans and the Ice Worms. In the first game, there were so many interesting and diverse creatures, each with different attack patterns and behaviours, which made them all extremely memorable. In this game, the creatures are copy-pasted throughout biomes, making them not nearly as memorable as all the biome-specific creatures of the first game. The attack patterns are also really similar too, with literally everything in the game biting or eating you. In the first game you had leeches that stuck to you, warpers that teleported you out your vehicle, crab squids which electrified you, etc. But in this game everything feels bland and forgettable. Anyways, I need to extend the runtime of this video, so let's do a quick run through of all the unique sea monsters and fauna you'll find through the game. Herbivores. Arctic Peeper, a variant of the Peeper from the first game with a new light blue aesthetic. Arctic Ray, a bioluminescent ray that swims around on its sides in mostly empty biomes. Arrow Ray, a new type of fish only found in certain biomes. Bladderfish, returning from the first game, these can be used to craft water. Boomerang fish, another fish returning from the first game, can be eaten raw, cooked or cured. Discus fish, another generic fish being relatively late game, only being found in the tree spires and the deep lily pad isles. Eye jelly, a weird jellyfish copy-pasted in Arctic biomes which only attack in defense. Featherfish, a weird purple fish found in 4 biomes. Red featherfish, a red variant of the featherfish found in late game biomes. Hive mind, weird glowing things that glow different colours depending on if a predator is near. Hoopfish, a disturbing looking fish found early game. Lily paddler, a weird thing that uses telekinesis attacks to disorientate your movement. Sea monkey, this game's answer to stalkers. They're really annoying and can steal your things, but can sometimes give you stuff and lead to pretty cool interactions that aren't found anywhere else. Sea monkey baby, sea monkey child. Skyray, weird bird things from the first game. Spinefish, hoopfish on crack. Spinnerfish, weird sideways swimming starfish. Titan holefish, huge fish which has holes that you can use to replenish your oxygen. Trivolve, the worst version of the cuttlefish from the first game. Scavengers and parasites. Rock grub, weird tapeworm things that are found in like 2 places in the whole game. So yeah, that's it for fucking scavengers and parasite. Carnivores. Brinewing, annoying as fuck fish that can use brine to feed easy in place. Brute shark, fairly early game carnivores found in the twisty bridges. Crash fish. Terrorists. Cryptosuchus, annoying loud as fuck fish in almost every biome which is super easy to kill. Newt fish, strange suction cup fishy. Pengling, cute baby version of the penguins, can be abducted. Penguin, live on the ice sheets and go diving, gets pissed when you steal their children. Pinacarid, cool seal type thing that looks like an Animalacaris. Rock puncher, praying mantis thing that was scrapped from the first game, will punch your nuts too if you're not careful. Snowstalker, scary landwolf. Margaret has a pet one that jump scares you when you enter a base. Snowstalker baby, cuter snowstalker. Spiky trap, annoying floor tentacles. Squid shark, cool not quite leviathan thing, found in a few biomes and is objectively the best fauna in the game. Symbiote, annoying chelicerate fish things. Leviathans, here we go. Chelicerate, this game's main leviathan, looks like an overgrown shrimp. Glow whale, this game's replacement of reefbacks, these ones are way cooler. Iceworm, the box art leviathan that burrows through the ice to kill you on land. Juvenile vent garden, living plant things that are useless. Shadow leviathan, endgame scary leviathan. Vent garden, massive plant thing that you can swim inside. Void chelicerate, the chelicerate's emo twin. Extinct species. Frozen leviathan, massive leviathan that lots of people wish didn't die. I won't go through the flora, but I'll give you the highlights. I like the bioluminescent thing in the tree spires and the deep lily pad things. If you know what I mean. Overall, not as much fauna compared to the first game, but quite a few of the fish were reused from the original. Cut content. Let me say one thing. I have no idea why any of this content was cut, because all of it would have made the game so much better. Anyways, let's dive in. Let's dive into the scrapped, cut and unused ideas over the game's development. Scrap biomes. Here's a concept of the really barren Arctic biome. This would have been so much cooler. All these weird glowing fish things and the huge ice networks. Also notice the sea moth is here, so that was also scrapped at some point in development. They cut a biome called the Deep Arctic, which would have been home to glow whales and a scrap leviathan. A scrapped methane caves biome, which would have been the deepest in the game, and a transitional biome that was just called Fissure in the code. There, that was a little quick run for you. There was a frozen river area which is still accessible in the game, but only accessible via building to it or using prawn suits jump boost. Another above ground area was called Hover Zone 3. That wasn't really elaborated on. An above ground ice sheet biome which would have been on top of 2 other biomes. A biome just listed as Leviathan Trench, which sounds really interesting but was never added. And a place called Rocket Area Shelf. The issue with the biomes is there's not too many concept art or screenshots. There was just stuff in the code about it, or just stuff that was removed really early on in early access. Scrapped characters. A character called Night Ski 65 was going to sell a shuttle to Robin. A main antagonist called Sirik Javov, whose role would have probably been something like this. Javolv worked as a contractor for Alterra with Robin. He awakens Alan and escapes in an Alterra shuttle, only to crash land into the glacial basin. Javolv would have told Robin during the events of the game that he could provide her information about the conflict she's having with Alan in her head. When Robin and Javolv get an escape shuttle near the end of the game, Robin sends Ensign 42 in an exchange rocket up to the Vesper station. Javolv activates the planetary shield, intentionally destroying the rocket in the process, and then revealing he released Karar onto the station only using the Cure's blackmail so he could capture Alan for himself. So that was some of the scrap characters. Pretty weird. Coral. There was originally a plant type of coral that would have grown in the tree spires. That's it for that. Tons of scrapped audio logs, all available on the wiki. So if you want to check out. Okay, fauna. Dragonfly. A cut version of the Skyray that was scrapped from this game and the original. There was going to be a small land creature called the Hover Lizard, an amazing looking cut leviathan called the Ice Dragon, whose mechanics were reused for Brine Wings. The Kite Wing Skyray, which would have been an aerial attacker, which could mix things up. The Sea Emperor from the first game was cut for some reason. Flora. A frosted over plant, simply known as the Frosted Leaves plant, was cut, along with a snake plant, spine plant, and weird plant. Yes, that's its actual name. Items. Some cut Arctic resources and some heating gel was scrapped. A microscope and 2 types of analyzers were cut, along with some interesting sounding reinforced glass. The final cut item was a resource intended to be unique to the Twisty Bridges. Locations. The exchange rocket from the scrap story was deleted from the game, along with a methane cave, biome, architect cache. 2 research bases, Kappa and Omega, were also scrapped. Base stuff. The medical kit fabricated from the first game was cut for some reason, probably because you're not going to be taking much damage, along with an interactive phase gate. The radio from the original game, as well as a platform that recharges vehicles, also somehow didn't make the cut. Multiple stairways and walkways, spotlights, wall-mounted foundations, and a weather monitoring room that didn't make it. Lots of story-related content was obviously changed and scrapped. To give a rundown, it was a few areas, some models, a suit, architect terminals, codes, a special type of PDA, Enzyme 42, Karar samples, data storage devices, research notes, precursor containers, skeletons, lots of precursor gear and items, the tablets from the first game, and a special type of salvage for the purple vents. Tools and equipment. A bioscanner used for the story, a deployable drill, the fire extinguisher for the first game, lightweight high capacity oxygen tank, propulsion cannon, stasis rifle from the original game, and ultra glide fins. Vehicles. Cut vehicles include a scrapped hovercraft, a reversing camera for the sea truck, a sea truck planting module, as well as multiple sea truck and prawn suit upgrades. There were 2 cut weather effects as well. Here are some more pieces of cut content, a small image presentation, so I don't sit here all day. I can make an entire video of the cut content alone. See, I really love the variants of things from the first game, like this Icebreaker and Crested Reaper. Why were they scrapped? Final thoughts. Believe it or not, I actually think Below Zero is an alright game that couldn't live up to the predecessor. If the devs actually made a story they promised to be good, then it would be alright. But the severe lack of fauna, biomes and map size is the real disappointment. The concept art proves that they had some solid ideas which they didn't implement for some reason. I'm honestly not sure why. I know they're working on some project right now and it's probably not Subnautica related, but if they make Subnautica 3, they should put more time and effort into getting feedback from the original and Below Zero to make a really good, definitive Subnautica experience. I literally speedran the game and finished it in just under 15 hours. Really that short. I know it's not short as other games, but yeah, still not too good for a Subnautica game. Anyways, I'm done here. like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one. It really means a lot to me to watch these videos all the way through. Oh, this is going to be a long video. This script's been sitting in the bin for about since September last year, so almost a year, but I'll see you around. Bye. It used to be a series about exploration and discovery, and that aspect is yet another thing ruined by this game. You learn from these conversations. Fuck up. Okay, so the developers sacrificed gameplay for the story, so this story better be good. The game was received extremely well with loads of... Fuck off, this doesn't make sense. This game was received extremely well by loads of popular YouTubers, with quite a few of them... Fuck off, I just found out what that sentence was. This fuck story clogging up everything, and the protagonist you play as is silent. Why am I like this? Subnautica, I wrote that with 2 A's in the script. Specky. Until you realise that there are far too many oxygen plants in every biome. So unless you guess lot, as well as the depth change. It has a shit job. Why is the script crusty? We see disobey. So apparently this genius is directly responsible for the bacteria outbreak in the first place, because he when you finally... This is why there is no Homer, land. Fuck off. Where am I? On land, you have here the each with different attack biomes. Fuck off. Anyways, let's dive into the scrapped, cut, and unused ideas over the game's development. Scrap biomes. Fuck off. Here's a concept for the really Arctic biome. Fuck off. A